All right. I believe this means we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and sorts and sizes and persuasions, welcome to another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, aka Some Gadget Guy. The SGG of this terribly named podcast series, but the QA, that's the important part. It stands for question and answers. We like to make this an interactive conversation, just kind of get into the mix, get our tech week started off right. Just seeing the news reports from over the last week, or maybe some news broke over the weekend, or maybe AWS is having massive outages, and I have no idea how many people are actually going to be able to jump on this stream. I'm actively having problems just keeping like web pages up and screenshotted so that we can talk about some of the news this week. Even had some issues this morning. Like, I don't think my website is in any way backed up by AWS. Not on my hosting provider, and yeah, I still even had issues just trying to get in and do some stuff there too. So, welcome those of you who could show up. We're gonna try and have a fun tech conversation. I'm keeping this week like last week. I'm still kind of ebb and flow of weird sinus congestion. Not quite laryngitis, but I keep blowing my voice out, and I need to stop yelling at softball and baseball games. But we still have some fun topics to cover, and I'm going to try and keep this week's show just a little bit more focused for the news block and for the gadget block. News block, we're going to talk a little more about AI and just the continued conversations surrounding this topic as we're seeing the stock market in flux and geopolitical policy sort of making different investments more difficult I'm not qualified to give investment advice, but definitely some indicators that I think we should all be concerned about given previous bubbles and rug pull scams and investor bait strategies. Then the second half, I really want us to talk a little bit about trends in smartphones. One of the ones that I'm going to focus on is thin phones. And it's a constant drumbeat that I've been talking about. I mean, like, I want to say since like the Moto Z series, but that thin is not a feature. Thin is a lack of features. And I'm hoping there are some folks in the chat that maybe disagree with me, that maybe thin phones were the thing that you were really looking forward to. And I'm not trying to pick on people. I'm not trying to like debate me, bro. But I am kind of curious to see like what other perspectives or point of view. If it's just like someone else said it was popular and I wanted something thinner and that's gooder. I mean, I don't know that we'll have a conversation with any substance, but we can still have a chat. I'm just curious, like, is there something I'm missing? Because I really feel this is a trend that's bad for consumers. So those are the two main blocks. Those are the two main topics that we're going to talk about. I have a couple of little links and stuff in there too. But first of all, I hope everybody just had a lovely weekend. We are full on baseball softball family now. And just like last week, I was getting to talk about this. It is so adorable that we're creating a little sports ball club at my daughter's elementary school. This is something I didn't have until junior high, where you realized as a kid, oh, my friend plays this sport and they have these games, and I could just go watch their game and I could hang out with them and I could cheer them on and they could come see my game. Like, it wasn't something that I really clicked on until about junior high. And so we started seeing like some of the little boys from my daughter's school up at the ballparks for my daughter's nighttime softball games. And you're like, well, when do you guys play pony? Like, you all play baseball when you play. Oh, we play Sunday mornings. All right. So from from Saturday night to Sunday morning, we are all softball, all baseball, and it's a lot of fun. And especially it's really interesting to see like the softball girls go to a baseball game because at the little pony league baseball games, they don't have walk-up music. The boys don't do cheers or cheers or like chants or anything in the dugouts anymore. So the girls are sitting there like, this is so weirdly quiet. Why is this game so quiet? And it's a great game, but they're also learning a lot. Just like, what are the differences? The boys don't wear cages over their faces. The pitcher is pitching from an elevated mound further back than a girl pitcher pitches in 10U softball. It's been a really lovely little sort of sports cultural exchange. And so much so that now we've got players on both of these teams like asking like, "Hey, could we do like a baseball softball scrimmage?" Or my daughter, she's a catcher. She just really wants to catch on one of the faster pitchers on her friend's team. Like we're having these conversations like coach to coach, parent to parent, player to player, and it's wild. It's something I did not have at 10, and I'm so stoked that my daughter's getting to like play with some of that stuff. So hope everybody out there had a lovely weekend. I'm gonna jump right into some housekeeping. Oh, I just saw this is hilarious. Okay, so when I started talking about baseball, softball to actually like getting to this point, um, so I use co-streaming software. I don't have the ability with our miserably slow internet upload speeds to manually upload this stream to multiple platforms. So I send my stream to this one little server and then that distributes the stream out. That server apparently woke up because I went from I knew I had more than 5 viewers just based on the comments, but I have a little ticker telling me how many concurrent viewers I've got. And it went from 5, which was incorrect, to 55. Then it went to 30, and now it's back up to 50 again. There are definitely some problems out there, and I apologize if there are issues with the stream where you're trying to watch it. But I just saw this like number just vacillate very, very quickly. Um, Thank you everybody for tuning in. I'm gonna avoid just kind of doing the roll call in case anyone's trying to like stream and they're having issues and stuff like that. But thank you again everybody who's showing up and tuning into the stream. And I love seeing the comments in here. There are already comments that we're gonna be focused on later in the show, especially when talking about thin phones and foldables and stuff like that. So I love that we're already seeing some chatter. Just knock out a little housekeeping. I got a couple fun videos out. I'm still like chipping away, like little rock hammer against the walls of Shawshank Prison, just nicking away at some bigger videos that are going to be on the horizon. But I do want to screen share here. If it'll screen share, come on, you can do it. Now even like OBS is being weird. Look at how long OBS took to switch over. I think maybe there's also something going on with my PC. I have no idea. Okay, so first off, this was a written review that was published early for patrons, but I finally got it out. And this is kind of just a continuing conversation on how much fun cabled audio has been. We are in kind of a headphone and earbud renaissance when it comes to cabled options. I love spending time with like $300 to $500 planar magnetic headphones, but also in the earbud space, brands like KZ, I feel like they're trying to mature. It's not just hypercolor deep V tuning IEMs that oversaturate your sound or have like weird extra drivers that aren't necessary. I got to spend some time with the KZ Vader Pro, and these are triple driver earbuds. That means in each earbud casing there are 3 individual drivers to handle the lows, the mids, the highs. But these are unique for me, especially because I've never test driven anything like this before. That they have 3 dynamic drivers. So usually when you have a multi-driver, you got this one really big dynamic driver. It's like a little teeny speaker cone inside the earbud, and then you have these little balanced arms. There are these tiny sort of rectangular stick drivers that are helpful for articulating, especially in the mids and highs. I've never heard a triple dynamic driver before, and it has a very unique sound. But I also really like this is another one of those experiments from KZ where they have the little pin switches so that you can kind of adjust the tuning. Do you want them bassier? Do you want to lift in the mids and the highs? You have these little pins that you can switch on them. This is wild audio technology. This is an earbud, it's just a cabled earbud goes in your ear, but you can tune them. You can tune them with a little like 4-band EQ. And this is a very unconventional driver assembly for anything that I've experienced. They are not accurate. I would not use them out of the box for like recording, mixing, or mastering. Unless like you futz with the EQ and you can kind of dial in the sound that you want to hear. They're $30. Tiny little EQ tweaks and adjustments, and you can make these a very fun sound. And they're $30. And I'm playing with hundreds of dollars of earbud. And like I've got the Pixel Buds in front of me, I've got the Nura, I've got two different status earbuds, I've got some One More, some One Plus. This is the H3 from Soundpeats, a triple driver true wireless earbud. This is still like a $150 earbud when it's not on a sale. 120, 150, I can't remember. 30 bucks for some cabled earbuds. So I wrote up a really long review. This isn't a video. You can kind of just page through it, but that's on it originally published on Patreon, and then I brought it to somegadgetguy.com. So now that's public so everybody can watch. I mean can read it. And then moving on, we had a pair of videos that were really fun to put together right back to back, although I don't know that that was always going to be great for my YouTube stats. Android 16 betas are finally hitting the market, and the first two phones that I'm getting to rock Android 16, I mean, aside from the Pixels, of course, the OnePlus 13, so we're looking at Oxygen OS 16, and the Vivo X200 Pro. And the Vivo X200 Pro is not only our step into Android 16, but it's also Vivo's retirement for FunTouch. I well, so first off, I've never really had these like issues with FunTouch. People like to complain about FunTouch. It is the least fun skin on an Android phone. And to me, it was very anachronistic. It was very like it had elements cobbled together from trends that were sort of like 4 years spaced out, and I felt it didn't land a continuity, a good continuity of software aesthetic. It reminded me a lot of classic LG. You'd get something new that looked really flashy and polished, and then you'd get into a menu and you'd be like, "What is this? Android 2?" Right? So FunTouch to me had that kind of a feel. I think that's charming, but I appreciate why people don't like that inconsistency in UI. But now we're retiring FunTouch. So FunTouch is going away. We're going to Origin OS 6. Again, it's kind of tricky when you've got all these different letters and numbers. It's the X200 Pro, no longer FunTouch 15. Now it's Origin OS 6. And it's not exactly the same as Origin for the Chinese market. So that's also going to cause some inconsistency or incongruency in how we talk about this stuff. But this is a big step for Vivo. So moving on, we're saying goodbye to FunTouch. We're now going to Origin, and it's been interesting to see just how much they maintained layout and accessibility and where elements in the UI are. But this is kind of like the move when OnePlus really embraced Oxygen OS, pulled it from Color OS, and improved all the animations. So FunTouch was not very fun. Origin OS is very animated, very lively, very bouncy. It kind of modernizes Vivo and iQOO in a really fun way for the global markets. And so I've got videos for both. You can see what's going on with OnePlus, which is very AI driven. I know a lot of people are probably going to be upset about that. I think there are some interesting ideas if they're maybe not quite landing for me, but I like how they're going about plugging more AI into the OnePlus 13 into Oxygen OS. So again, very different philosophies. Android 16 is proving to be a very nimble target. Like what Google is doing with Android 16 is very different than what OnePlus is doing with Android 16, which is phenomenally different than what Vivo is doing with OnePlus 16. And something tells me Samsung is going to have an entirely unique idea for what they want to focus on for Android 16. So, more so than ever before, I feel like the actual Android updates are very small, very iterative. Like where we went from 14 to 15 to 16 is not radical departure. It's not radical change. But where every manufacturer's skin has gone from Android 14 to 15 to 16 has been pretty profound, has been very unique. So every manufacturer I think is trying to put their own unique spin on what Android is and what their ecosystem does. And it should be interesting to watch over the next year how these products are adopted. Especially the companies that I feel are trying to make more lock-in and more ecosystem. I don't think they're going to succeed well. I think we're probably going to see some chilling out on that kind of strategy. Ken X saying, I'm not a fan of the liquid aesthetics on iOS. A little sad that they brought that over to some Android UI. So, right now, I think we're still in that half step behind. What I think is funny is Oppo and OnePlus were ahead of the curve on using like floating island aesthetics. I think that's kind of dumb. I really do. The iPhone has this big, stupid cutout in the top of your screen where they put all the Face ID stuff. It was a notch. Now it's a floating bar. They managed to make it a little bit smaller, but I always think it's miserably stupid to cut up the screen, the thing you interact with, to put in a selfie camera. That's dumb. It's dumb on a MacBook. It's dumb on an iPhone. If you want to do something to the casing and design, you want to minimize bezel, which is irrelevant to the function of the product. You could do something like Lenovo does, where they've got like a little hub, right? There's like a little lid latch that they put the webcam in, and it looks like, oh, the bezel's got so much smaller. Fine. That to me is an aesthetic solution that does not impact the screen that you interact with. But one of the other reasons I have a problem is iPhones and Androids are different. They don't function the same way. As you scroll through content, if you have split notification shades like an iPhone, that means you have to have lateral moves to get to different parts of your notification shade. It is insanely easy to accidentally do a back gesture when you're trying to switch laterally. That kind of stuff really bothers me because we just copied the look of something on iPhone, but iPhones don't work like Androids. So OnePlus was ahead of the curve on doing the little floating island stuff. But so far, in my experiences using these different products, I think it's likely Samsung that's going to embrace glass effects the most. So what I see in Vivo and what I see in OnePlus is not liquid glass just like Apple. They're just going way harder on bouncy animations, zoom effects. There are some transparencies, but it's not I'm going from something semi-transparent to something else semi-transparent. It's more, how do I fade through a button to get to some other element further back in the UI? And then there's just tons of blur. So where Apple was sort of blur transitions. iPhone's animations are really slow, and they have always been really slow. So they make the phone feel more fluid. So you tap on an app, and it takes a while to load that app, but they've got a really pretty slow animation that kind of morphs you from one step to the next. That's what I'm seeing a lot of in Android 16 right now. Less so glass, not quite material like what Google is doing, but tons of aesthetic blur. And like what Vivo has really jumped onto, you pull your notification shade and it's not a panel, it's every little piece of it zooms into view, like kind of like an animated collecting effect. So anyway, I'm just saying, like, I'm with you, Ken X. I actually don't like liquid, but before I really didn't like excessive blur effects, and now they seem fine. So like two more UI fads down the line, maybe I'll come around on glass. I don't think I will, but stranger things have happened. Okay, so from Shut Them. Oh, hi. Do you plan on continuing the Pixel video soon-ish? So I've been working on the Patreon. There is the video. I put out an editorial talking about why I don't use Pixel cameras, and I'm halfway through stapling together a Pixel versus Vivo comparison, an X200 Pro. I'm keeping it to the older generation of Vivos because it's already a hard enough fight for the Pixel. And again, I'm trying not to make a hate piece on the Pixel, but there's really so few areas where a Pixel can legitimately compete one to one. If it's camera sensor technology, if it's post processing, photography, the Pixel is falling farther and farther behind. And I think it's getting this sort of algorithmically popularity based adjustment for why it's still brought up as a competitive device. You look at performance, you look at updates, you look at battery tech, you look at charging, and I'm really struggling with whether or not I'm going to put out this comparison, put it out publicly, because like the more I try to massage it, the more I feel like, oh well, I'm starting to give the Pixel a pass just because I feel sorry for it. But if I put out the phone just talking about it where I feel it's like a straight up head to head kind of battle, then it's just you're gonna have a bunch of people who are Pixel fans go, oh, but you're just a hater, and you're like, all right, fine, I guess. It's it's stupid. I'm really struggling with it philosophically. It might just live on Patreon. Because at least then I'll know like the comments are at least going to be considered. And it won't be that someone clicked on my video, saw some stupid thumbnail, and then immediately went to some like hate comment on YouTube. I'm just tired. I'm tired of the sort of the ignorance and the grief and how YouTube sort of fosters all that. So we'll see. I genuinely don't know what I'm going to do with it. I might leave it up to patrons and just say, hey, I'm going to call a board meeting and say, does this go live? If it goes live, then you all need to be in my comments helping me police the garbage, because I'm not going to sit here and weed for grief. So anyway, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I feel like now that we've gotten a couple of these small updates, and they've been small, like little 30 and 40 megabyte OTAs on the Pixel 10. It has helped some of the performance issues that I got at launch, and I feel like I can meaningfully talk about this phone. But it's like, man, I feel like I've reviewed this phone 2 times before, and that it's not getting better. I feel like this is kind of the same phone I've reviewed before. Not generationally, this is what we should have expected. Like this literally could have been the same phone I had 2 years ago. So I'm really trying not to slam it just for the point of slamming it. I'm trying to build to something that I feel might be meaningful or insightful, and I just don't know that I've got it. I don't know that it's there. So, I do need to take a quick pause here. One Mr. Jonathan Gao subscribed with Prime, subscribed for 18 months, and currently on a 3-month streak. John, thanks so much for jumping in, and thank you for supporting the channel. And even with AWS down, and I know Twitch being really twitchy right now, I appreciate the support that you made the effort. And you get one miserably bad acapella fanfare of glory. But seriously, of course, everyone who's out there supporting, who's sharing content from their favorite social media and content creators, anyone who's spreading the word on old school technologies like RSS readers. If you're relying on YouTube to feed you notifications when your favorite creators make new stuff, I guarantee you, YouTube is trying to get in between you and your favorite creators. So as long as we're telling these stories and we're bringing insightful commentary, fun shares, fun conversations, this stuff all gets better. And the best way to do it is to step outside of YouTube's like restrictive, uh, locked down platform. The more that we can kind of guide people around that, share around that, then the more we get to just have those conversations and turn YouTube back into the dumb server storage space that it really deserves to be. So, Dave Burns, I'm important too. Dave also just subscribed with Prime. Subscribed for 50 months. That is nuts. Okay, well, let me do one more because he just called me a nerd. I couldn't keep it. Sorry. Yeah, my voice didn't sustain, and I was bemused with Dave's comment there. But also, thank you too, Dave. I like that you subscribed also. Just a couple quick shout outs. Excuse me. So can you please let me know how to pronounce your name? Keneally? Keneal? Kanile? I have no idea how to pronounce your name. But it's funny, you're saying the X100, try the X80. There is some tech on the Vivo X80 Pro that could still give a Pixel 10 XL a run for its money. Farhan saying, nah, just publish it. Just do it. Do it, bro. Just do it. Dave Burns is saying, my OnePlus 12 is really only competitive against a Pixel in bar lighting color composition. Uh, Dave Burns also, the year is 2025, and we finally have the GPU power to run Windows Aero on everything. We got Gadget Goddess just popping in to say, good afternoon, everyone. And Suolin 1, any thoughts on the acute lack, diminished availability of rootable devices in today's landscape? I feel like it's wild to spend $1,000 on a pocket computer that you don't have full control over. And I have not been active in the rooting and ROMing scene for a while. I mean, I feel like the last time I was really trying to crib editorials on that kind of stuff, I was like new at Pocket now. I really have done a very poor job of keeping up. But the frustration for me is having recently started digging back into mini PCs and portable gaming consoles and laptops and just how much fun I've been having, you know, slapping a flavor of Ubuntu or Mint on a piece of hardware. I'm really disappointed in techies not making more noise about when we lose features. So when Google gets more restrictive about letting people sideload, we need to push back and rightfully point out sideloading isn't a nefarious thing. Google gave it this ugly terminology to help people forget that we used to just install programs on our computers. Back in the Windows Mobile days, Windows CE, embedded Windows, stuff like that, we didn't have one singular app store, but we could buy programs from all of these different platforms, from all of these different stores, or directly from the developers. We'd get a cab file, we'd put it on a memory card, tap the cab file, and now there's a new program on our phones. And there was none of this idea that you could lock that down. And unfortunately, the appification of mobile devices is rotting its way through more computer devices like laptops and desktops. And of course, Microsoft wants to have the keys to the castle. Google wants to have the keys to the castle. Apple does a pretty good job of keeping people just buying through their software platforms. And we've got to push back against that. It's terrible policy. It's bad for consumers. It's bad for bad for developers, especially. And we've got to find other ways around it. I'm a big fan of Steam. I like a good chunk of my Steam library. I mean, good chunk of my game library is on Steam, but that's not exclusive anymore. Now I'm also poking around Epic a little bit more, and I'm a huge fan of GOG, right? So we have these different platforms and metaphors on proper computers, and we need to bring that back to Android devices in a tangible way. For me, rooting and ROMing is one aspect of having control over the device, but we've lost so much ground that to start making it back, we need to have that push in consumer education to get people remembering this wasn't how it always was, or there were other things you could do, or just something stupid like maybe you don't need to install a dozen different apps and you could go back to using your browser for some of this functionality. Let's not lose sight of the capabilities that we had because in many ways they were better than what they're trying to force us to do today. That's just my feel on it. um Yeah, Suolin, exactly that idea. I ask because for me it's an issue in principle. I own all my desktops and laptops and can do as I please with them. Why is my phone different? And the phone is different because we've allowed marketing to replace education. We've allowed PR to replace education. We don't teach. We're so impressed with little kids touching a square to get an app on an iPad, and we call that tech savvy because that's how tech savvy their parents are. But let me promise you, as I'm working with kids, like I'm the assistant for the new math club at my daughter's school. We're doing a competition math team and all the kids are really excited. And I'm watching them like pull out pencil and paper to work out math problems, but then I'll see them open up their school laptops and they genuinely don't know how technology works. Not at all. Where files live, how to manage their interface, why they suddenly have all these weird shortcuts on their desktop, all the things that they just kind of click in on their browsers when the teachers aren't looking. They are clever enough to find ways around like firewalls and stuff, and they're going to parts of the internet that they shouldn't, but they fundamentally don't understand the whys of any of it. When I was a 10-year-old, we still had, when did we get the Pentium? So Massachusetts. I don't think we got the Pentium until Ohio. So yeah, when I was 10 years old, the main computer we had at home it was kind of old for its time. But my mom was a computer scientist wrapping up her degree, and my dad was an engineer. So he would use computers at work. He wouldn't use the computer at home. But my mom, all she cared about was that she had like a 9600 baud modem. She could log into her school's mainframe. She could kind of code remote and kind of finish up stuff because she had, kids at home. And it was an 8088 XT clone running DOS. So if I wanted to play a game, I had to know where the floppy disk was, what the file name was, how to organize, how to navigate, a tree of the hierarchy of where data lived. We're not teaching that anymore. We're trying to act like we've moved beyond it. So you open a app for a photo, and that's where you can see all your photos. But your photos live somewhere. And the kids today have fundamentally no idea how any of that works. My daughter's trying to be clever and get around me on stuff, and it just like where she's at today is way behind where I was having to like work my way through DOS. Like what I was trying to get away with my mom was a lot more advanced than what my daughter is doing. From Ken X, I wonder if the Android lockdown has to do with the Android Chrome OS integration now that we will start seeing Android PCs, laptops. And I want us to be on the lookout. I want you all to be watching. Google is merging Android and Chrome because there is still some concern in the regulatory space as to what should happen with Chrome. Right now, Google gets to keep it, but I'm sure Google is still anxious about what might happen with other regulatory policy or what might impact Chrome. So right now they're merging it so that they can go back into a courtroom and say, "Oh, but we've kind of let up on Chrome." But they're going to play that really pedantic, annoying legalese game. It took us years. US Perg was a part of the conversation there. I think EFF got involved in some of the policy conversations. It took us years to get Google to support Chrome OS for longer. There was a time where you could buy a brand new Chromebook, but your support started at the beginning of the manufacturing for that Chromebook. So let's say that Chromebook line was produced in 2015, and then we guaranteed 5 years of updates. Well, your 5 years of updates started in 2015, and if you bought that Chromebook in 2018, you lost 3 years of updates. It didn't start when you got the device, it started when that device was originally conceived and manufactured. And it took us a long time to get Google to extend that broadly as Chrome OS gets 10 years of support. Right? Now we're all really excited about that. But now it's going to be an Android device. Is there any universal Google mandated policy that Android gets 5 years of updates, 8 years of updates? Are we going to see Android devices with 10 years of software support? We might have to fight that fight all over again because the words changed. Don't you see? It's not a Chrome OS device, it's an Android device. Oh, they're fundamentally different. I guess we'll have to keep that policy under investigation. And if consumers ask for it, then I guess we can switch that over. That's like the cynicism of all of this. Like, Google might come out, do the right thing, and like, okay, we'll just be relieved that they maintained the software support. But they're trying so hard to whittle other features down, pull things from users, try and rein, like they're trying to create the walled garden that they want. And now I just don't have trust. I have zero trust that Google is going to go out ahead of an issue and do the right thing. So it's been pretty frustrating. This is like increasingly why there's some of these. Like I really want to get a few more Windows tablets and then see if I can play around more with getting like Linux installed. I know like for a lot of them, like touchscreen support has just been the bane of my existence on Linux distros. But it would be so much fun to like get a Windows tablet, flash it to Mint, something kind of fun and consumery, and then just like, what is this like against my really nice OnePlus Pad 3? My OnePlus Pad 3, I know is going to get some solid software support, but the hardware is going to far outlast the software support mandated by OnePlus. And then I'd still have this Mint tablet getting updates forever. And then I'd also be able to like maybe replace an SSD or add more RAM or something like that. Anyway, let me take a drink of coffee and then we're going to get into some AI slop. Woo woo! AI slop, go go. Oh man, Andrew taking it back. So Andrew says we had a hand-me-down Tandy TRS 80, which was our first computer until we got a Windows 3.1 Packard Bell. So we went from the 8088 to I want to say it was a Pentium 1, but we skipped 386, 486, went to Pentium, and I want to say it was like just a brutally powerful version of the Pentium 1, but it was a Packard Bell. I miss that name, Packard Bell. That was such a fun, like, oh, we're getting a proper office powerful computer, Packard Bell. That's a name that sounds like it's got pedigree and heritage. But it was an 800 megahertz device with an, was it 800? It was 800 800. So I want to say it was an 800 megahertz. No, was it an 800 megahertz? It probably wouldn't have been. I'm gonna have to look it up. Anyway, but it was like slingshotting us into the future, and it had a CD-ROM, and we could play games and like use CD-ROM software. It was the screaming edge of compute performance. It was pretty great. Let me get this out of the way. Okay, so we've got some AI news. We have to start a little heavy, and this is also attached to a court case that's going to be that's coming up. So we want to see if we can start creating legal precedent, even though conservatives have no respect for precedent. We at least need to have literature in the courts where we can examine the aspects of technology and the potential for harm. And one of the things that is getting more and more problematic, I didn't link it in this week's notes. Sorry, everything that we're going to be talking about this week, all of the housekeeping and all of the articles will be available in this week's show notes, somegadgetguy.com. You can also catch the cleaned up audio version of the podcast on patreon.com/somegadgetguy. Of course, always appreciate the people that are supporting over on the Patreon. So you're sort of my shareholders now in an era where YouTube really doesn't support channels like mine anymore. So I didn't put it in this week's show notes, but Joseph Gordon-Levitt came out and started talking about AI slop. And obviously, an actor and producer, and I don't know if he's ever directed, but he's someone who likes to really get involved in the entire content creation process. Musician, actor, producer, writer, I think, but also had his own like experimental online production platform, Hit Record. As much as I feel like he was not helpful for LG commercials drumming in the subway, I've had a lot of respect for how he's approached newer technologies, newer platforms, and the collaborative process of content creation. So anytime someone says like, "Hey, I don't want one person to have to do everything," because that's always a miserable product. Let me tell you, that's true as an army of one as I make all of my videos and write all of my editorials. It would be nice if I had a team to work with. Um, he actually tried to foster a collaborative platform. So people would go to hit record, and you could say, "Hey, I'm a lighting designer. Hey, I'm a location sound mixer," and then try and put people together on projects so that they could just do the best work that they could do in their sphere. Sorry, tangent. Joseph Gordon-Levitt came out and he was against AI slop, but one of the main things is, hey, I've got young kids, and we're starting to see these platforms embrace relationships and sensuality and sexuality in ways that is grossly inappropriate. And that's increasingly one of the things that I feel with any new technology, we always kind of chuckle or chortle about the more salacious stuff, but that does seem to drive the adoption of new technologies. Is what is that like for the adult entertainment sphere of the internet? Does Blu-ray support that better, or does HD DVD support that better? Well, we got VHS over beta because one embraced this community of content and the other ignored it. But with AI, this gets increasingly problematic as these models, it's not particularly difficult to find versions of these models, of these AI generating content generating models, that can then be used in ways that, again, this is like really difficult to not just like vomit a bunch of abuse language, but can be used in ways to really harm more vulnerable populations and can be targeted and weaponized younger and younger and younger. So it is very easy to grab one of these models, kind of free it from what loose guardrail a major platform might have, and then train it to do things that we would find absolutely not only objectionable, but societally horrific. One such example is coming by way of Ars Technica. This is written up by Ashley Bellinger. Teen sues to destroy the Nudify app that left her in constant fear. One of the earliest teen victims bullied by fake nudes has sued to destroy the app she said left her living in constant fear. In her complaint, the teen, who was granted anonymity as a 17-year-old minor, accused Clothe Off of intentionally making it easy to generate and distribute abuse materials, CSAM, as well as non consensual, intimate images of adults. She also alleged that the social media network Telegram helps promote Clothe Off through automated bots that have attracted hundreds of thousands of subscribers. This is a much longer article. I really hope you will give it a read. Ashley Bellinger's bleeding edge of covering this kind of content. And I like how, again, just like the rest of the folks at ours, I like how they cite and source their materials. We talked about this, I want to say it was about 2 years ago, where we found rings of high school boys who were leaning into these new AI apps and models before there were really any. Well, and this was still real Wild West stuff for this new generative content AI, these new tools, and were just making nudes of their classmates unwittingly, because our legal system can't properly appreciate what the impact of these tools and platforms might be. But these tools unwittingly created a ring of child abuse material content creators. Like you you shared material of an underaged individual, that makes you a trafficker of that material. And again, in high school, you do have a not insignificant population of people who are now like legally adults when they're in high school. So we 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 kind of crouch some of this like, oh, her. I don't see what the big deal is. Like, when my parents were kids in the 60s, they probably had some magazines or something like that. But that's not a boys will be boys kind of situation. Just to give you an example of what I feel boys will be boys. When we first moved into this condo, I think I've told this story before. We first moved into this condo. I was going to the grocery store, and it was about lunchtime for the high school. And I see a group of about 5 or 6 like teenage guys sitting outside our grocery store, and they're just going hog on one of those giant platter family-sized chocolate chip cookies uh, packages, like from the bakery. Not like Chips Ahoy. Like they had Taste. They went to the bakery, and there's five of them, just like face like it's like a race to see who can eat the most chocolate chip cookies from this ridiculously oversized platter of chocolate chip cookies. That's what I feel is the upper limit threshold for boys will be boys. If I am going to excuse silly masculine behavior, that's where I stop. Is the race to see who can eat the most chocolate chip cookies. Even when I was a teen guy, I would coyote ugly my arm off to get out of situations where dudes were hurring in the locker room about female classmates. That has never been my speed. That's never been my jam. I do not agree that that locker room talk is boys will be boys. Chocolate chip cookie eating contest? I'm there, man. Every day, every day. My waistline will hate me. I'll jam. Let's see what we can do. Locker room talk to AI abuse materials, that's that's not it. That now we are excusing criminal behavior. And I think we need to stop excusing the on-ramps to criminal behavior. And oh, it's just too soon. It's just too soon, you all. We just need to see where the technology can go. No. No, 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 no. We live in a society now where I feel we can have some pretty good ideas of how these types of platforms can be weaponized, how people can be abused. And now we need to say, what is your policy for preventing the explicit proliferation of abuse? Oh, but we just need to see. Nope. No, 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 no. Your platform doesn't get to platform until we can have a conversation about how do we rein in obvious obvious paths to abuse. This from like the dawn of Photoshop to generative AI, we've completely absolved tech companies of having these kinds of conversations in any practical sense. And the thing that just makes me really sad is that what happened to this 17-year-old girl, she joining this conversation to remove one program from the internet is like taking a giant massive swimming pool and taking a little eyedropper and sucking up a little eyedropper and then squirting that into the grass, because the app that she's going to remove from the internet didn't train their own models. They're probably just conduits to other larger AI platforms. And as soon as you get rid of the name clothe off and you shut down that one portal to the AI model and the servers that are generating this content, a dozen other names for the exact same process and the exact same generative content are going to crop up. So at some point, we actually do need to hold the massive corporations and the massive data centers responsible for generating this content liable. It's not enough to just kind of hide under the surface of a shell game of different companies. Well, this is clothed off from Scumbag Tech, and Scumbag Tech is a division of Gross Dude Incorporated, and Gross Dude Incorporated is an LLC in this other place, and then they report to this, and then they all funnel this to an Amazon data center. I mean, we'll shut down Clothed Off, don't worry. And there are just like dozens of other layers to this. We actually need to start crafting repercussions in a meaningful sense. And I appreciate, I respect, I'm so proud of younger generations kind of speaking up or trying to sidestep some of the worst aspects of these technological improvements. But until we have regulatory agencies, legal policy, courts and judges and lawyers who are adept at handling these kinds of cases, it's still going to be like an 80-year-old judge presiding over this case going, oh, I don't know. I mean, like the internet is a series of tubes. And like we're cooked. Like it's just real bad. We're just proper cooked. So, as a court case, I would like us all to keep an eye on it. We at least need to have some kind of written opinion on the ledger, on the docket, to say, this is our expectation, and these are our expectations of privacy, security, and safety. And this isn't to me a, oh, won't we protect the children? This is, I feel like this cuts a lot deeper. Where I railed against Apple building backdoors into the iPhone, I didn't feel like that would bring any substantial improvement to the situation of creating and disseminating this content as much as it would just cause incredible amounts of harm, especially when governments were able to piggyback on Apple's backdoor and say, well, I don't like Winnie the Pooh memes. So I think that's bad. Instead, we could be turning our law enforcement efforts towards how this content is produced. And when you know it, we've got a really good court case here to see how is this content produced and how is it distributed. And then we can literally go and look at like Facebook or even the AI slop ads on YouTube. I, I think it's hilarious. Like, this is one of the reasons why I refuse to pay for YouTube Premium is I'll constantly get served ads on YouTube, and it is fascinating to see the zeitgeist where I'm getting AI generated like influencer talk shows that are explicit conversations about grown-ups' bedroom lives. So like any pretense of like Google saying, "Oh, well, we've really got, we've got our ducks in a row and we're protecting people against objectionable all out the window." All out the window. If you want to make dudes insecure about their performance or their anatomy or anything like that, AI slop bots ready to go. If you want to like trad wife a bunch of women, AI slop bots ready to go. Like explicit conversations about some of the most personal and intimate biological processes that the human body can achieve. And that might get served up in front of a video telling you about how to install SteamOS on a mini PC. And you're like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. If you're trying to target some lonely dudes, I guess you could look at some of the tech stuff, but it's really sad that that's what YouTube is making so much money on. That's what their ads are trying to foster, or that they know that those ads will upset people. Well, I just saw this terrible ad and I was trying to watch a YouTube video with my kid. Then I had to explain, like, what where babies came from. And so I guess I'll just pay for YouTube Premium. So I guess the system works. Instead of saying, "Hey, maybe I just need to not do all my viewing on YouTube." I know what I need to do. I need to pay YouTube more money to fix the problem that YouTube created, and I got to explain the birds and the bees to my kid. Like, just the awareness that that's what they're doing to harm their audiences and weaponize their advertisers against their audience so that YouTube can then say, oh, but we understand. We know. You know what? You just pay us and you'll see less ads on YouTube. How does that not read as a scam? How does that not flag every state attorney general and say, hey, that's a conflict of interest and it's pretty scummy and you have no quality control and you're actively trying to hurt creators on your platform, you're trying to annoy audiences on your platform, and you're definitely not pairing the best commercials for your advertisers with the audiences that would be most appropriate. It's probably fine. You know what? YouTube can fix it with charging their customers more. YouTube Premium, that's the way to go. So, teen sues to destroy the Notify app that left her in constant fear, written up by Ashley Bellinger over on Ars Technica. This next one coming in from Tech Radar. Uh, I saw it first from I saw it first from someone posting it on my private Discord, and I have yet again forgotten to link over who sourced these. I apologize. This one was shared to me, and I forget who shared it because I'm really crap at doing podcasts. But this one coming by way of Tech Radar, but it got a little traction kind of across the web for a hot minute. Who wrote this up? From Eric Schwartz. The internet is now mostly written by machines, study finds. More nude or I said nude. More nude articles. I promise you I will never subject you to a nude article. More new articles online are written by artificial intelligence than by human beings, according to a new study from Graphite using Common Crawl data. Graphite found that AI generated writing had passed the 50% mark of newly published articles written in November of last year. The figure has plateaued in recent months, but it's still a huge change in how content is produced. So, this is the thing I have a small issue with because we would need to see what their error rate is on something like this. The study relied on AI detection tools applied to 65,000 English language URLs from the Common Crawl archive, filtering for content with article markup and publication dates from 2020 to 2025. They classified each article as AI generated or human written based on whether over 50% of its content matched AI detection criteria. Not that the detector is perfect. The study's authors estimated false positive and false negative rates of about 4.2% and 0.6% respectively. I am not confident in those error detection rates, but I think many of us in this chat probably have a feeling about the quality of content that we've been consuming around the internet, how platformed-ified all of our content distribution vectors are now. For example, I've given up entirely on Reddit. I'm not a big fan of traditional social media outlets like Facebook or Twitter. I I feel like I'm going to mention this after we finish up this article, but YouTube is giving me drudgery work every day that makes me want to throw my boot through my computer screen before I even get a chance to actually work on new content. I've got to do maintenance, housekeeping, cleanup BS. So I think we all have a feeling that whether or not this number is entirely perfectly 100% accurate, that we've all been experiencing how less fun the internet is because of how much garbage slop we have to sift through to get to content that we might find interesting or engaging. It seems to further foster this doom scrolling action. Like I keep scrolling through news feeds and I keep scrolling through articles and my wife still scrolls through Reddit and I see her stop on individual posts less and less frequently, but it's like this mechanism we've trained, just keep looking, just keep looking, just keep looking. Oh, okay, here's kind of an interesting one and it's full of AI bots. Okay, just keep looking, just keep looking, just keep looking, and we eventually get to something that we really wanted to consume or we were really interested in. So Dave already kind of beat me to it. He mentions we're barreling to the dead internet theory at top speed. But one of the problems that we're encountering is the vast majority of human generated ooh, excuse me. The vast majority of human generated content can very easily be consumed quickly and at speed with these massive data centers. And so now we've got AI bots kind of ripping off other AI bots. And when I see like for example, I'll keep on. Where's my phone? Man, I hope nothing's going on. Oh, it's right over here. It's just behind my water bottle. Um, Again, one of those things that I'll keep on. You swipe to the side and you get your Google feed and you can kind of look through articles and stuff. And I'm finding the more I try to manage this Google feed, the more I try to manicure it, the more aggressive Google gets at reaching out to other um sites and sources that I know for a fact are like third generation AI slop, AI slop, AI slop. So you get to a headline, you think, oh, that's kind of interesting. Let me see what this article is about. And then you see it's this very weirdly patchy constructed facsimile of an article that then just has tons of ads, just obliterating your ability to really follow the article, right? So to me, when we hear these kinds of studies, it's not so much like, oh, well, human generated content is has been eliminated from the internet. It's that the first pass written by a human, like on a reputable website, and then by the time you see it in your Google feed, what you're actually seeing is the third, fourth generation of AI bots scraped it from one and then published it somewhere else. And then another AI bot said, "Oh, this got a little traffic," scraped it from that AI repost, and then regenerated it. And it's just less and less cohesive, coherent, practical, or contributes less to the conversation. And that to me is kind of what's fostering this feeling. Actually don't believe that these numbers are as legit as they're trying to say. This is effectively, we did this study conclusively, this is the evidence. I find it hard to know, um, because I also think we're going to hit a crossroads where, unfortunately, people will start to write like what is popular. And look, you can find all the people who said, like, yeah, I turned in a term paper, and it was, they accused me of using AI to generate it. So I showed them my word revision history, and um, I was able to refute the claims that I was an AI bot. Sorry, I went on a bunch of different tangents and stuff. Still, I'd like you to check out what the study is at least trying to examine. We have to fight for the content that we like. We have to participate. And then also, as much as I make my living doing podcasts and making videos and writing editorials and, showing up on other people's websites and being a gun for hire and reviewing things. Like, for my own personal consumption, for my own recreational downtime, as soon as I'm catching myself kind of scrolling, like, I want to see news, I want to see something interesting. I don't want just a dumb hot take or a badly clipped video piece of a longer interview. I just want something something that feels more real. As I've been finding myself falling prey to that never-ending stream of crap content, I've failed so much, but I am trying to actively walk away from social media, walk away from websites, from news, from platforms, and then just like fire up a book. I have a ridiculous collection of books that I've been buying from like Humble Bundles. I'm actually playing around with a few different, like, how to make your own Amazon Kindle server kind of stuff. How do you make a Plex for ebooks? And I really suck at Docker. Um, there are a couple of really fun projects out there that look amazing. They keep your progress, they keep you focused, stuff like that. I'm just really bad at them. But even without those, like, I just, open up my NAS, I got an ebook, I go to the open source ebook reader app that I got from F-Droid, and hey, if I was going to spend 15 minutes, over lunch scrolling through social media platforms, instead, let me just spend 15 minutes reading this wacky. I just started Murderbot, right? Let me just spend 15 minutes reading Murderbot. That's fine. That's fine. I could just do that. That's okay. Before Murderbot, I found, it was another Humble Bundle, like the entire collection of IDW Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comics. Now, I'm a grown ass man, and I grew up with the most violent incarnation of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and it was just kind of a fun homecoming, coming back to a slightly darker, but not like, Snyderverse version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And then that got me into Last Ronin. And you're like, oh, you know what? This is a really fun, Dark Knight Returns kind of vibe for the Ninja Turtles. I like visiting this world, and I like showing my daughter the cutesy animated Ninja Turtles. This is great. I'm having a good time, and I'm not just letting Reddit suck my soul out of my body. So, oh, no, Dave Burns. I know Calibra is a really good piece of software. It's a really good platform. I'll have to see if I can look them up. Maybe I'll write out just like a little editorial of what I failed on so far. Calibra is great. I'm not nothing against Calibra, but I really want that managed server, multiple users, people can log in. I want the Plex amp not just of audiobooks, but of actual literally written text documents and comics and stuff. Excuse me. And I want it in a flavor that my wife can use because like right now, oh, it was so cute. So we still subscribe to Qobuz. That's my music streaming platform. But my wife has really started to like using Qobuz. And we only pay for a single individual user license. So if she's listening, I'll go to start it and then see, oh, but your stream is currently being occupied by this other device. So I still have a ridiculous music collection on my Plex, and I finally just kicked my own butt to kind of clean it up a little, get rid of some of the duplicates, look at some of those really garbage MP3s that I've had on a hard drive since like the Napster days. Just scrub all that junk out. Like I'm a digital hoarder, I never get rid of anything. But I did finally clean this down. I think I mentioned it on some other on the Ugreen NAS video talking about like I've got like a 20 gig music collection. It's not big. That's perfectly manageable. It's totally reasonable. So I finally did everything to clean it up, really get it cleaned up, and sync it with Plex Amp. And so I've recreated like my daughter's softball playlist, missing a few tracks from Qobuz, like albums I never purchased. But I went through and like, okay, well I could buy this album, and I like this new Sabrina Carpenter, and she really likes Dua Lipa. Let me get some Dua Lipa, and like some of it, like I would go and get cheap CDs, like used music. Let me get some CDs. That's fine. I sounds the same to me. It doesn't sound any different because that CD was played by someone else before, and I just fleshed it all out. And so now, whenever my wife's on Qobuz, I can be like, "Hey, Lex, did you want to listen to something? Yeah, let's listen. Okay, cool. What do you want to hear? You want to hear some OK Go? You want to hear some Sabrina Carpenter? Oh, Foo Fighters. Cool. Foo Fighters Go. I have all those in shiny plastic boxes. I have the entire discography of the Foo Fighters. We can jam. Let's do it. So I kind of want that as easily and consumable and multi-platformed for ebooks because a lot of my wife and I share, we have a pretty good Venn diagram of the books and comics that we like to read. And I just want to make it that kind of process where she is totally comfortable now picking up Plex, firing up a TV show or a movie, and just letting that stream. She's she's getting there with Plex Amp. She likes Qobuz. I want to find that book version. And there are a couple really good projects. They're all very, very early, but with that really pretty, polished, Kindle-like kind of experience. And I just want to find something that works like that. Sorry. That was a longer explanation that I intended. Let me take another drink of coffee. Man, even like muting and unmuting my mic is getting weird on Restream right now. Some Dave Burns is saying having a dedicated device for reading long form content allows you to be undistracted. I totally agree, and I do want to get another. I'm thinking I might get a what is it, Kobo, one of the Kobo colors. I really want to play with one. I want to check them out. I miss. I had the Sony e-reader. And it was such good hardware, and the battery died in it, and there's just like nothing I could do to get it repaired. I really looked like I called up shops around town. I even looked at what I could do to disassemble it, and it would just look like a job that was beyond me. But I think I might jump on a Kobo. But there is something, I don't know what word I want to use. It's not like it's not like revolutionary. I'm not doing anything defiant, but there's something satisfying to me. I'm doom scrolling on my phone, and the portal to which all of humanity's ugliness is being served to me, I can make the choice to swipe that stuff away, fire up the IDW collection of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and just jam. And if a bunch of notifications come in that start to piss me off, I'll just go do not disturb for a while. And then I told this device to shut up, and it obeyed me. There's something, again, it is phenomenally better for your mental health to just pick up an e-reader or a dedicated tablet or like one of the TCL, the next papers, something that you can say, hey, you know what, I'm gonna block you from distracting me while I engage in this activity. But then there's also something really satisfying about just telling your phone to shut the F up. And I don't know why that clicks in my brain like it does. Because, like the comic reading experience on a phone screen isn't great. You're kind of going from panel to panel, and I'm zooming in and zooming out. And I'm just a touch farsighted, so I'm having to hold my phone just a little further away from my face. Like, it's not better, but there is something satisfying about kind of being the Dom in that relationship again. From Dave Burns, CD hi-fi is still much better than streaming, and I will die on that hill. JGJ, is 20 gigabytes 1,000 songs? So I still do have a chunk of my collection in very high bit rate, nicely transcoded MP3. But anything new that I get is FLAC. So that music collection is growing rapidly, like my movie collection grew. And again, I love buying stuff on Qobuz because then I can just get a download of it from Qobuz and it's still organized in my Qobuz app. But again, if I'm moving back and forth between streaming and purchased music tracks, and my wife is occupying the streaming side, then it's just easier to also take all of those FLACs that I've downloaded from Qobuz, I paid for, and then put them over on my Plex amp. So I like having both avenues. I want to say like when I did the math on it, it me was still an MP3 assessment of songs, but that is quickly shifting and the music collection is getting bigger. But I'm never going to be the guy who's like, oh, I need DSD files, I need every song to be like 20 gig. That's not going to be me. I'm not that guy. And I really don't have problems with firing up Plexamp and saying, hey, when I'm out on a data connection, just send me like 128 megabit per second live transcoded MP3. And that's okay. If it's not music on my device and I have to stream it from my Plex collection, I've got a little mini PC out there that does an incredible job of transcoding on the fly. And the 128 megabit per second MP3 sounds fine when I'm like trying to do a workout and it's just background noise from my workout. We're good. Totally good. Oh, AV. Hey Juan, thank you for your work. I appreciate that, AV. I'm glad people are out there and just kind of having some fun conversations about that. From Ike's Tech Talk. Lurk mode deactivated. I'm going to steal that from you on the next time I get to tune in on someone else's live stream. It's freaking sweet that Lex asks to listen to Foo Fighters. Great taste. Lurk mode reactivated. I just did my a friend of mine from high school. She's a high school government and English teacher. I actually don't know what Holly's teaching these days. I know she teaches like a government class, like a civics and government class, but she also has another class. It might have actually just been for anyway, irrelevant. But I've been working with her for a couple of years now, especially during the pandemic, of kind of calling into one of her classrooms, and then we'd have a conversation about tech politics, regulatory policy, or then also we could talk about things like hearing health and consumerism. And I just did another series of guest lectures for her class last week. And she's more East Coast time, so getting up for her first class period of the day was not fun. It was like I had to be camera ready at 5 a.m., and I don't think I succeeded. But it's always really fascinating to me. I show up and I do this like I know I've got about a 45-minute, maybe a 50-minute class period where we're going to talk about not damaging your hearing and ways that you can kind of protect your hearing. But then to me, the most important part is you take care of your hearing and you treat your ears to different kinds of experiences, and that can be really fun. It's not just eat your vegetables. It's like this is actually how we get to the dessert, in my opinion. But at the end of it, I always like to just kind of check in. And, I asked one of the class periods, like, so what are you all listening to? Like, I've got a daughter, she's about to turn 10, and We like the new Taylor Swift in this household. She likes the new Taylor Swift in this household. But Taylor Swift was her gateway drug to Sabrina Carpenter. And I'll tell you, between the two, I think Man's Best Friend is kind of a killer pop album. It's like a really biting and kind of acidic and satirical, clever pop album. So I'm throwing these things out there, and the kids are kind of like nodding along or responding, or you can just kind of let them go and talk to each other, which is the best. Like there's one girl who's like, I don't listen to anything pop. I think pop is derivative and crap, and I only listen to like 80s and 90s rock. Like great. Um, but as I'm sitting back and listening to all this, like I have to be really careful because I worry sometimes I might have trained my daughter to not be able to speak the same language as her peers. When she was really, really little, and I was so tired of like Mother Goose Club videos on YouTube, I'd be like, hey, Lexi, I want you to watch this. This is a funny video. And I'd fire up like OK Go because they make these really fun, expressive music videos. And so over time, she just started to like the songs. So she would ask to, especially the one that they did in the car. So OK Go did one where they're in a car and they've got these paddles. And as they're driving, the paddles are hitting different instruments and different drums and stuff. And as long as they're traveling at the right speed, they're playing the music of that song. What was that song? Um, Needing Getting. Check out the music video for Needing Getting. This was the song that Lex heard. Lex saw the video and then said, we were driving around one day and she's like, can you play the car video? And you're like, well, I'm driving. I can't like play. You know what? Let me get a copy of it. And then we would listen to the song. I actually pulled the audio of the music video, which is the car. I actually like the car version better than their studio produced album track. But that was the turning point. She started requesting songs, not just can I see a funny music video, it was the songs. And also the Foo Fighters had a whole bunch of really funny and experimental music videos too, and the Foo Fighters took us off in another direction. And so she's at least literate. Like if I play Nirvana, she can kind of detect Nirvana, stuff like that. And so I always kind of worry, like, is she going to school talking about stuff that none of her peers are into? But thankfully, she'll also come home and be like, oh, I love this new Descendants song. And I hate the Descendants. Or it's now K-pop Demon Hunters. Like her entire class just went wild on K-pop Demon Hunters. And the soundtrack has been in regular rotation there too. So thankfully, it's like, okay, I'm not raising a freak who's going to be like quipping 1950s sitcom references to kids who've never seen like Dobie Gillis. I'm okay. I'm at least raising a functional person in her age demographic. But it is nice that whenever we kind of kick back and I'll try to semi regularly, like, hey, I'm reviewing a new pair of headphones. Do you want to just listen to some music? And we'll hang out and I'll be in her bedroom and we'll swap some songs back and forth. And it's not just garbage Disney tracks or just K-pop Demon Hunters. She'll also request something like, what was the last? Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You, right? I want to hear what the Whitney Houston song sounds like on these headphones. You got it. Let's do it. I love it. It's awesome. I like I've always enjoyed that. I had parents who would express opinions on the content that we watched. And I like sharing that analysis with my daughter too. So it's not that she just likes the thing that she likes because she likes it. It's like, oh, and I liked what these characters did, or I liked how this happened, or this was interesting how that played off. And I'll just listen. I'll let her talk. Like last night. Sorry, this entire episode has been completely derailed. I'm not sorry. Last night we were trying to find appropriate spooky movies. She's 10. She's going to be turning 10, but she's a little young for her age. She is extremely advanced um, in language skills, but she also is still kind of clinging to a little bit of the little kidness. I don't want to completely stomp on that. I don't want to just force her into more sophisticated things because she's going to be turning 10. So she's just got to, shrug it off and rub some dirt on it. but we're trying to find like what is something that it's fun, it can challenge her a little bit. So on a whim, because I know there's some objectionable language, but it's part of the joke of the movie. We wanted to watch a spooky movie. And of course, she's coming up with like, oh, we could watch that Netflix short from Sing. And you're like, no, I want to watch a movie. I want to watch a movie. And I don't want to watch Hotel Transylvania again. I don't want to watch like, ooh, a kid's spooky movie. So I fire up Tremors. Y'all remember Tremors? The Kevin Bacon film from the 90s. It is it is my opinion, and anyone who disagrees with my opinion, I'm pretty sure you're wrong. I'm very confident you're wrong, but it is my opinion that Tremors is a near perfect film because you go into Tremors and it has one of the most ridiculous movie monster premises that's ever been committed to film, but it's executed at one of the most gloriously well made, high concept, production value, excellent cast kinds of situations. You took total stupid schlock, like it could have been another Night of the Lepus, but you made it in one of the most caring, most groundbreaking, and one of the most present ways that a film in the 90s could be made. Tremors is a little gem. It's spooky and it's funny and it's adventurous and it's clever and moments pay off. And I'm pointing this out to my daughter more and more and more. Like last week, we were talking about watching Raiders. Again, I just want to find something with a little creepiness to it. I don't want to like send her right into full on horror. But Raiders has some really eerie and creepy moments, right? It's actually a pretty good Halloween film for an adventure film. And Tremors, likewise. And so, well, by the end of the film, she was laughing along with characters who would throw out a string of kind of like Western, curse words, but then turn to the girl and say, "Pardon my French." She started to click like, "Oh, that's kind of funny." And then the female character, lays out some curse words, and she says, "Pardon my French," and my daughter laughed, and you're like, "Thank you, that was funny. It's an appropriate line to laugh at." Sorry, but I got way off on this tangent here. I'm gonna go ahead and just like kind of stop right there and walk it back. But yeah, it's really fun trying to find those moments with your kid where you can let them dig a little deeper, or you can just let them enjoy something for its surface level and let them take the wheel. Right? I'm letting Lex steer on this, but more and more like she's listening to the lyrics and she's explaining how the lyrics make her feel. She watches a movie like Tremors and like the climactic finale of Tremors, she was eating dinner and she had like a piece of chicken strip at her mouth for like the entire ending sequence of the last moments of Tremors and like frozen. She was in that movie. She was so into it. Again, so great. So great. All right. What do we? You know what? I'm gonna mention this article. I want you to read it. It's coming from the Register. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on this because it's just validating what I've been saying on this podcast for years now. Cloud AI data centers are an unsustainable business model. They don't work in the way that we set up consumer behavior. They will not pay for themselves, and we have to find ways of managing and migrating so that this AI bubble doesn't burst in a horrifically bad like 2008 economy crashing way. This is coming by way of Thomas Claiborne over at the Register. OpenAI's ChatGPT is so popular that almost no one will pay for it. If you build it, they will come and expect the service to be free. OpenAI is losing about 3 times more money than it's earning. And 95% of those using ChatGPT, which generates roughly 70% of the company's recurring revenue, aren't paying a dime to help stem the losses. So they recently just put out a video slop generating machine. And some people are estimating that every single attempt at a slop video from ChatGPT, Sora, is costing the company between $5 and $8. And not every video that's attempted is actually published. So if you attempt multiple vibe edits, you've cost the company 30, 40, $50 to get to a video that you can post that then they have to fund the server time to pay for. For the last 2 years, as we've started talking about AI, something has not made sense to me is how do you build a stupid amount of infrastructure and power it and set up all the server racks and all of the coders and all of the developers? How do you maintain this infrastructure and pay for it? So last year we talked a lot about how OpenAI's scheme seems to be buying and selling services to different major companies and organizations, tons of investment from Nvidia and paying into Nvidia so they can get Nvidia hardware. And at the end of all of this, they're always deeply in the red. Their revenue not only doesn't cover their server costs, while they were getting sweetheart deals from Microsoft for less expensive data center access, their revenue wasn't covering their expenses, and that seems to be growing, and their only plan seems to be milking more investors. So, we just raised another $10 billion round of funding, and now our company is worth $500 billion. And that money that they raised for investors is mostly going to paying off their incredible losses. From this article, according to a report published last month in The Information, OpenAI during the first half of 2025 collected 4.3 billion in revenue while still posting a net loss of 13.5 billion during that 6-month period. There is no business model in cloud data center AI. This is going to deflate or rupture at some point, and I'm hoping that it is not a rapid cataclysmic shock to the economy, because I think what could be awesome is as companies like ChatGPT finally erode and as investors finally cop that this is kind of a rug pull scam and no one wants to be the last one holding the bag of ChatGPT stock. But as this starts to deflate and erode, those data centers immediately pivot into military, into science and research, university, starting to become more of the backbone of future products and services. That it's not just I'm operating this enormous facility to do a word guessing game that looks kind of like human speech to you. So check out this article from the Register. And again, there are some other links and some other citing some sources and stuff like that. We don't have exact numbers on this, but as we've seen from their financials, from their statements, and from other people doing investigative work, this has never been sustainable. And in fact, it looks like it's getting worse. It looks like the disparity between revenue generated and costs incurred isn't getting better, because also we're getting to that cycle of hardware where what OpenAI and what ChatGPT was sort of built on is starting to fall into obsolescence. So they've got to keep investing in future bits of hardware that do not have long shelf lives. Like, think about like what gamers can suffer through on GPUs. Yeah. I mean, if you built a box today, you could still be rocking a 1080 Ti, right? That is still a very good graphics card for some, 720p upscaled 1080p gaming. You'd actually be doing fine. But it's starting to show its age. And in an era of like frame gen, 1080 Ti might not be getting it done anymore, right? We can suffer individually through longer stretches of hardware, but that's not what the industry is demanding. The AI industry is demanding tip of the spear, bleeding edge, the most brutally powerful of new compute tools every generation that they come out. And those costs are ridiculous. They cannot be maintained when you've got a 3-to-1 disparity on revenue to losses. But don't worry, ChatGPT will just raise another round of funding and they'll probably, get another 15 billion from investors. It'll raise their market value to 600 billion dollars, and they'll pay back the 13 billion they're in the red, and they'll have 2 billion extra to spend. The system works, except that they still owe all that money. It's so bad. It's so stupid. Uh, yeah, Dr. Claw 77. Uber and a lot of those gig apps still aren't making money, if I recall correctly. The problem, I mean, so the costs on Uber are relatively low, though, because they're not operating a fleet of vehicles. They're not, I mean, they were investing a ton of money into R&D to replace human drivers, but not at the scale of building massive data centers to just ratchet electricity and water in those areas. So the costs for Uber not being profitable are fundamentally different than OpenAI. I mean, think about it. OpenAI is going to incur over a year roughly what, 25 to 30 billion dollars of debt. They will not meet their operating costs to the tune of around 30 billion dollars. And that's worse than last year. It's not getting better. They're not getting to a break even point. And in another couple of years, they'll probably have to tack on a whole bunch of like server refits or work with other data centers or electricity costs. All of that is scaling more aggressively than the company can keep pouring money in from investors. Like Uber, it's just not a good deal anymore, right? But Uber isn't scaling up their costs at a time where they're not profitable. So anyway, I just think this is hilarious in the worst way possible. But now we have a ton of hardware out there, and it would be nice if some of it could get repurposed into more meaningful endeavors than generating slop videos and telling people lies in chat apps. This isn't fundamentally changing the world. This whole promise of OpenAI is, oh, we're going to create an intelligence and it's going to change the world and how people interact with information and how work is done. And no, it can't do any of that. If it could do any of that, you'd be building towards it and you would be showing us those products. Instead, you built garbage. But now we've got that hardware deployed. The hardware is in operation. So instead of shutting it down like all the fiber we dug in previous decades that has just laid dormant while we wait for ISPs to figure out that fiber to home is a good idea, instead of just letting it go dark, well, I mean, let's get some pennies on the dollar. Let's see if we can lower utilize but still populate some of these data centers with much better things to run on bleeding edge hardware. Instead of OpenAI, I wouldn't mind some public investment in infrastructure and tax dollars going to fulfilling public works or fulfilling better scientific research. If it's going to go dark, let's use it. From Ron Guido. It all sounds like a Trump business. Well, Trump asked for 10% of Intel, and Intel just gave him 10%. It's so stupid. It's so dumb. Simon says, Hypno, even if they charged $3 a month and got a quarter of their active users to sign up, they could bring in 600 million a month. And people aren't buying it. I love it. So I lied again. I wasn't going to talk a whole bunch about that one. The other article I want you all to read, but that I'm not going to talk about a whole lot. This one legitimately coming from Adweek, written up by Kendra Barnett. Google's privacy sandbox is officially dead. The elimination of many remaining privacy sandbox APIs comes 6 months after third-party cookies got a reprieve in Chrome. Excuse me. Oh man, I accidentally nudged the button that turned on my turned up my mouse sensitivity. I hate it when I do that. After a blog post detailing excuse me, after a blog post today detailed 10 remaining privacy sandbox technologies being axed, a Google spokesperson confirmed to Adweek that the entire project is being retired. Quote, We will be continuing our work to improve privacy across Chrome, Android, and the web, but moving away from the Privacy Sandbox branding. We're grateful to everyone who contributed to this initiative and will continue to collaborate with the industry to develop and advance platform technologies that help support a healthy and thriving web. And in the whole spirit of Google's graveyard, I just don't feel like many of us are keen to extend the best interpretation of Google's behavior in a situation like this. So I want you to read through the article. Kendra breaks down the individual sort of elements of Privacy Sandbox that have been axed before, and then just why there's so much skepticism on a move like this. It just it just seems like Google really isn't giving us their best, or our best. They're not giving us the best that we could have, and it's silly. And I feel like in the long term, it's costing Google. And here we are, right? So let me take another big swig of coffee here. And we got to talk about some thin phones to kind of wrap up the show because I am so happy that thin phones are flopping. I've never been more happy to see a potential product line fail in the market. I'm that bitter, sardonic, and cynical. Huzzah! Okay, so we've got two stories back to back. First one from nope, not that one. So from GSM Arena, not GSM Arena. Where is it? There we go. Sam Mobile. Man, my browser is going so slow right now, and it's weird. Like the video feed that I'm looking at back from Restream is super choppy. So apologies if this is just really irritating to watch. It looks great on my actual like OBS screen, but on the web browser screen, it looks terrible. Sam Mobile, written up by Asif Shaikh, confirmed Samsung drops the Galaxy S26 Edge in favor of a Galaxy S26 Plus. And then, oh, did I not I didn't translate it. I could have sworn I hit translate. Come on, translate this page. Do it. It's going so slow. From CEOtech.it, iPhone Air disappoints, production volumes cut. So I want to cover both of these at the same time. Thin phones are stupid. They are anti consumer. I am horrifically opposed to the aesthetic of making a phone a tiny bit thinner and a little bit lighter. So just shaving some weight at the expense of features. And I mean multiple features. We take the iPhone Air as an example. You've got 50% of the battery capacity that you could have had in an iPhone 17 Plus. You have one camera instead of two. You have a mono speaker instead of a stereo speaker, and the entire computing section of the phone is lumped into a tiny bar at the top by the camera assembly, which means you have one of the most powerful processors in an iPhone not properly given the surface area to vent heat out of the back of the phone. You are literally paying for half the possible phone that you could have had at the same price if you had gotten an iPhone 17 Plus. The iPhone 17 Plus would have been the most practical, longest lived battery powered device that Apple would sell. It would have been the best battery life iPhone. So, of course, in a very anti consumer way, Apple took the most practical iPhone, didn't make it. They axed the iPhone 17 Plus and they replaced it with the iPhone Air. This is the physical manifestation of the DOJ case we talked about on this podcast months and months and months ago, where the DOJ was investigating Apple for anti-consumer business practices and aired a whole bunch of internal communications from people at Apple where they were talking about ways that they could slow down innovation. Apple executives talking to each other had active conversations about how iPhones were too good. The technology in the iPhone is already too good. Our consumers would pay for less. So we've got to find ways of slowing down innovation. They said we've got to draw a line in the sand. That's a quote, to make sure that we don't exceed what our customers will pay for. We've got to have a good reason why we might invest in a new technology to put into the iPhone. And then they also quipped about how it's difficult, but finding ways to roll back progress. We could probably put worse stuff, cheaper stuff in the iPhone, and our customers would still buy it. That is the physical manifestation of the iPhone Air. The iPhone Air is that executive greed made corporeal, made manifest. Thin phones only exist to charge you more to give you less phone. And we can put up a stupid Samsung versus Apple, iPhone versus a Galaxy comparison. And yeah, I think rightfully a lot of people in this chat would say, sure, the Galaxy S25 Edge is a more technologically complete device than the iPhone Air. The Galaxy S25 Edge still exists. It still occupies the same corporate executive greed, the same C-suite bean counters saying, what can we do to get our customers to pay more for less phone? Because we compare that against what a Galaxy S25 Plus would bring to the table. And yeah, I think Samsung did a better job of putting in a more capable camera sensor on the Edge than Apple did on the Air. But we're still stepping down to 2 sensors instead of 3. We're still removing battery capacity. It is still a lesser than device. And someone please look it up while I'm railing and ranting and all this stuff. Someone please look it up. What is the actual benefit? What did we get for that? Is it like 25 grams? 25 grams. You're telling me your experience on a large screened smartphone. This is not a mini. I can understand like we have to lose features on a mini because a mini is supposed to be a communicator. A very basic, straightforward, streamlined device that just helps you get through messages and helps you make phone calls and maybe listen to a little audiobook or like scroll some social media. It is supposed to be a more focused device because the screen is smaller in every dimension. But that's not what an Air is, and that's not what an Edge is. An Edge is still a large screened device. So what did we get? Are you telling me that the muscles in your hand and the muscles in your arm are so impacted by 25 grams that you have to suffer a device that needs to be charged more frequently and cannot last the day as well? And especially because it has that smaller battery than the more filled out version of a phone, that battery is going to degrade sooner, which means you'll have to either do a battery replacement or just replace the whole phone sooner than if you had just a phone that was a little more filled out, a little more junk in the trunk. But we're talking to what? 30 grams? What is the difference? So Jimmy Fire Dragon says, I just checked GSM Arena and it says the iPhone Air is 165 grams. Do me a favor, look up what was the weight of the iPhone 16 Plus. Was it 300 grams? I don't think it was. What is the conversion? Someone please do the, if I try to remember in my head, I want to say it's like there's a 1 ounce difference. Is that the calculation? Isn't it some like close, like 30 grams is close to an ounce or something like that? I can't do that math in my head, and I don't want to stop all this here right now. You then have to fill in the rest of the experience. Thin has never been a feature. Thin is the removal of other features. So then you have to do other things to make the device easier to hold. You have to put a case on it. Apple immediately advertised, I am not making this up. In their keynote, they're showing off the iPhone Air. They say this has all day battery. And then seconds later, it's not me doing a funny edit. Like if you catch the videos that I put out about this or the editorial that I wrote, it's not me slam cutting two pieces together. Seconds after they praise the all day battery, they advertise that they're coming out with a new MagSafe battery. The first thing they showed you about the iPhone Air was that there's a new $100 wireless charging battery that you can stick onto the back of the iPhone Air. So we're already charging you $1,000 for this phone that is less complete than the iPhone 17 Plus, and you're going to love this. And you get to spend an extra $100 to replace the battery that we cut out. And this should be the F illegal if we had regulators with any spine. And this should be openly mocked and derided and laughed out of the room if we had tech influencers that weren't under Apple and Samsung's boot heel, licking it all day long to tell you how delicious it tastes. That, oh, but if you get one of these, you should click on my affiliate link to buy your new Galaxy Edge or iPhone 17. So I could not be happier that consumers haven't taken the bait. Samsung especially. Samsung definitely needed to be slapped around. More so just the fact that Samsung took a really expensive aesthetic phone and copied the medium priced phone of Apple. They took the Edge and they made it look kind of like an iPhone 16 Plus. So would you spend $1,300 on a phone that looks kind of like the phone that Apple will sell you for $800 or $900? How stupid do you need to be at Samsung to be paid millions of dollars as an executive? I would love to have that job. Oh, just copy Apple. Okay, well, we made it kind of look like an iPhone Plus. That's great. Now let's charge $1,300 for it. But the iPhone Plus only costs like $800. You shut up. You're fired. I'm an executive and I know what I'm talking about. Samsung, 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 Samsung. Like, how stupid do you need to be? So first of all, I'm loving the fact that the internal reports are coming out saying Galaxy S26 Edge is just not going to be a thing. We just scrap it. Just don't even bother. But I'll be curious to see. I bet you the iPhone Air sells decently enough that it'll be kind of like this tepid kind of support that Apple likes to do. I really feel if they had stuck with the Mini and built up the Mini, you would have had the premium flavor of what the iPhone SE should have been, right? You could have moved more of Apple's consumers away from clones of the iPhone 6. That's what the iPhone SE kind of eventually became. And you could move them into the Mini. Hey, you really want a small form factor device? You really want that efficient little portable device? We got the Mini for you. Yeah, but the iPhone SE was a $400 phone, and the iPhone Mini is like an $800 phone. And isn't it better? Don't you love it better because it's more expensive? Hey, yeah, you're right. You're like, I don't understand why Apple didn't stick with that. But regardless, it just makes me so so happy. I hate being the guy who wants to see products fail. I want more competition, but I need companies to be disavowed of this let's cut features and charge people more strategy. Because that usually works for Apple. And then Samsung can kind of piggyback on Apple's success and do something that I guess Samsung executives think is successful. But when it doesn't work for Apple, I'm just so desperate. I'm so thirsty that I'm hoping other companies. I am hoping Google is looking at this and they're scrapping their plans to do a pixel thin. I'm hoping other companies are looking at this, like maybe, a Xiaomi and an Oppo, Vivo and Honor. They're all looking like, how do we do crazy, crazy thin? Oh, wait, Apple isn't meeting their expectations. Maybe we don't need to spool up the R&D. Maybe we don't need to spool up the costs to make a phone that will definitely not sell anywhere near a single digit percentage of Apple sales. So we just don't even need to bother. Instead, our phone's gonna have a stupid lump on the back of it anyway. Let's just put in ridiculous cameras. Let's just keep doing that. Instead, let's look at like 7,000 milliamp hour batteries that don't seem to weigh any more than a Pixel Pro with a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. Or you can go even smaller. If I can hold up this is the Vivo X200 FE, and it is demonstrably smaller than my Pixel 10 Pro XL, right? So if I go to consumers and say, hey, do you want a smaller phone, but you don't want to sacrifice battery life? Well, it sure is a darn shame that you can't have this Vivo because it is a lot smaller in every dimension, right? And the Pixel they had. Look at all the bootlickers. They had to get rid of the SIM card tray. Did you want them to put in a smaller battery? This is like 5,200 milliamp hour, right? That's not a big battery anymore. That's like kind of just table stakes at this point. So then I hold this up and the Vivo still has a dual SIM card tray and it's got a 6,500 milliamp hour battery. So this has a bigger battery with a SIM card tray. You know what I would happily do is sacrifice even a little bit more of that battery capacity and get the SD card slot back because I know you could do it and I know you have the room for it and it would make the phone much much better over the life of having a phone, especially one that's like all about hyping up camera and photography, and it's got a little Zeiss label on it. You know, it would be really great to use with my Zeiss branded phone is the ability to put in a terabyte of micro SD card storage just for media, and then leave the 256 gig or the 512 gig just for programs and games and apps for the high speed stuff. The stuff that I need the high speed storage. I don't need high speed storage for 4K video. You know how I know that? It's because I have cameras that have SD card slots that are perfectly cromulent for shooting high bitrate 4K video. Micro SD cards are fast enough. You can get over it. But I digress. I really kind of went off on a bit of a. I'm like stuttering and breathing like Dr. Ian Malcolm. Life finds a way, and that's pretty great. Okay, Ron Guido is saying 36 grams, so 1.27 ounces. So what is that? 199 grams for the Plus, 163 grams for the 17 Air, iPhone Air. So I don't know. I feel like you are making one of the most horrifically stupid arguments to say a phone that is thinner and is harder to hold when it's not in a case is so much better for your experience with a massive screen, with a big screen, and that it's just 1.25 ounces lighter. I don't I don't buy that. I think that is a disingenuous argument presented in bad faith. Oh, it feels so magical. Where that feels like it's necessary or where that feels like it's important is when I have significantly more surface area to deal with. I don't even love thin and bezel-less on my tablets, but I will go with you if you're a big fan of a book style foldable mini tablet that turns into a double thick sandwich phone. I adored thin on the Surface Duo. The Surface Duos that are kind of right over my head, right about there. You can still see the composition notebook skin that I've got on my OG Surface Duo right there. I need to charge those up, make sure that they're still doing okay. I don't want the batteries to puff on those. um, there I'll go with you. Yeah, like the new Galaxy Z Fold. Yeah, it matters that that's a little thinner. I think, the Oppos and the Vivos and the Honors and the Huaweis have been well ahead of the curve for what Samsung and Google are doing. But yeah, thin makes a little more sense there, but also thin is spread out. You have two panels of phone thin on that. So yeah, that makes sense. I get that. That's a benefit. But when it's a singular slab phone with a big screen, you're not impressing me with thin. So I have diatribed, and I've kind of run this a little angrier and crankier than I kind of intended to. So I'm gonna take a quick drink of coffee. I'm gonna scroll back up through because I feel like I've missed a lot of comments and stuff. I don't want this to be me dogpiling on people who genuinely or earnestly love the idea of a thin phone. I would like to hear if there is someone in this chat just saying like, yo, I use one of these and I really like it. And I'm not trying to discount a personal preference, but what I am trying to point out is a marketing trend. A company has told us, actually, no, a company has forced disclosure from the Department of Justice that they are trying to take away features from your phone to charge you more. I want to hear why are we okay with that? Go to any of your family and friends and say, "Hey, do you want a little more compute power? Do you want a phone who's super super skinny, or would you want a phone that lasts like 3 days on a charge?" Same size phone that you have today, but instead it lasts a really long time on a charge. What would you want? And I don't think we're listening to consumers. I think we're hiding behind average consumers as a nebulous shield so that tech reviewers don't have to do their job. They never have to criticize Apple, Google, or Samsung. They can always say those companies are doing the right thing. And in any showdown, they can always somehow make it that Apple wins and all of their audience is happy and they make a ton of money on their videos. And you click, and not you in this chat, but people click on their affiliate links and they are enriched by just regurgitating marketing and looking at trends. Whatever trend is going to be most popular, I can say is the winner instead of saying, hey, you know what? I think you should skip this device. I had no problems telling you, I think you should skip the Galaxy S21 and the Galaxy S22. Those were bad phones. I had no problems looking at people having terrible experiences with the iPhone 12 and saying, hey, Apple's first try at 5G really ain't great. And if you had waited, if you had skipped the iPhone 12 and jumped to the iPhone 13, you would have had a much better experience. That wasn't me just being an Apple hater. We had data. So why is it that we can't ever have a techie just come out and say, "Hey, I really like Pixel phones. I don't think the Pixel 10 is it. If you have a Pixel 8 or a Pixel 9, I think you should wait till the Pixel 11." I don't think that's controversial. Go to Threads right now though, and all of like the Pixel non-team Pixel fanboys like, "Oh, these nerds only care about GPU benchmarks and I don't game on my phone." Well, keep bootlicking Apple. I keep bootlicking Google and keep bootlicking Samsung because that's totally how we get better products, right? This constant, unending Apple hype bootlicking gave us the iPhone Air. So Apple absolutely has our best interests at heart, right? If we just never criticize Apple or Google or Samsung, they'll eventually give us the products we really want, right? That's how it works. Except we keep being shown that they are happy to make our products worse, so we have to buy more crap to make the phones a facsimile of what we used to have 5 years ago. 5 years ago, we had feature complete smartphones that had accessories in the box and could be expanded or added to or use legacy technologies like cabled audio, and they took it all away, but they didn't replace it with anything. They're now taking away all the things they promised us, like bigger batteries. And they're whittling that back too. They're taking away the things like multiple camera sensors. Those are supposed to be better for our photography. No, you don't really need those now, do you? So I feel we keep bootlicking those three. Just kind of seems like a trend over the last decade that our products have gotten demonstrably worse as we keep enabling that kind of behavior from tech influencers down to the actual manufacturers of these products themselves. All right, let me finish off my coffee here. We're gonna read out some comments and then I gotta bounce. We gotta wrap up this show, so we'll cap it there. Okay, I scrolled up a real so there's a part of the chat we were talking about Google eliminating privacy sandbox. Scoop was in the chat saying, "Yo, one." So I would say, "What's up, Scoop?" Uh some Dave Burns is saying they really thought their customers were that stupid. Simon says, "Hypno, people mock thin phones, but they are a boon to those with paper wrists." Oh, sorry, Simon. I was reading your comment in earnest. I didn't see like a slash S. Oh my God, I'm so dumb. Simon says Hypno writes, people mock thin phones, but they are a boon to those with paper wrists. Who needs better battery life? I feel like that's the tone of voice. I was reading it earnestly and you weren't going for earnest. From JGJ, who buys the plus model? Isn't it like the push model, like medium size on a menu? Lots of people buy the plus model. So when we break down iPhone demographics, Apple has done the best job of moving customers up the price chain. So the average sales price of an iPhone is around $1,000, where like the average sales price of a Samsung is under 600. It might still be under 500, but Samsung has been trying to move more people up into more expensive devices. But when we look at Apple's sales, that movement up to around $1,000 has also coincided with phones like the iPhone number and iPhone number plus climbing to 7, 8, and $900. And so as we made this move where now the base model storage on an iPhone is 256, they just got rid of the 128, but they just nudged you up to the 256 price point. So it would have been $1,000 phone to have a plus with 256 gig of storage if you look back at the pricing that we had for the iPhone 16 Plus. So we're still in these buckets where about a third, probably a little more than a third of Apple consumers are moving up to the pros because that's where you're not getting squeezed like with the iPhone Air. But in previous years, as we looked at those sales demographics, a solid third of Apple consumers were on the current year number and number plus. And in that third, in two models of phone, Apple completely outsells all of the Galaxy S permutations combined. So a lot of people buy the Plus because it got a reputation as being the best battery life iPhone you could buy at the lower price. So now, of course, they would get rid of the Plus because there's too much competition between the Plus and the Pro, put the Air in that spot where people would have seen $1,000 phone, and oh, it's just we just can't make a better battery life. If you want the better battery life, you've got to go up to the Pro Max, and now you've just tacked on another 20 or 30% onto the purchase price of a phone that an iPhone customer would have had. But the data was there. In fact, I think the last year that they did a mini, I think the mini outsold or sold close to the total number of Galaxy S phones that Samsung put out that year. So there is a market for it, but Apple's entire business model is if you if you want to spend a little less, we've got to cut all these features. But if you still want all those features, you just got to spend 30% more. And that should be the F illegal, like the DOJ was investigating over anti-consumer and monopolistic and anti-competitive business practices. Apple is well overdue a regulatory market correction on their business practices because their consumers are trying to speak with they are trying to vote with their wallets. Apple customers are trying, but Apple is trying to make it more difficult for them to buy the products and the services and the components and the features that they really want. And if they want those features, then all they need to do is go and buy a Pro Max when they shouldn't have to.
And you can't leave the iPhone and still keep up with all of your purchases for iOS and the App Store and media and streaming and services and subscriptions. You have to completely leave the ecosystem. So that should be investigated like a monopoly. And Farhan is saying there are a lot of Plus owners in my country. If anything, I see very few with the base vanilla model. I think, I bet you the Plus is a lot more popular than the number. So, like an iPhone 16 Plus probably outsold the iPhone 16, but I don't know that I've seen granular sales data on that. Usually, when you look at analysts and phones that are shipped, not necessarily sold directly to consumers, but what product is shipped from Apple, I think we often just see sort of the bucket. So there's an iPhone 16 bucket, which includes the 16 and the 16 Plus. Then there's an iPhone Pro bucket. And then there's also the legacy device bucket. People who will go to Apple and buy a new, older generation iPhone to still try and save a little extra cash. And that bucket is now, I think, the smallest of the three. But it's still a much larger collection of sales in that like one generation old iPhone bucket than what Samsung will do with all of Galaxy S in any given year. I still want to say, like, again, given how Apple limits the number of devices that they sell, it's still a more profitable and larger batch of devices than all of Galaxy S. Galaxy S, I think, is still only about 10 to 12% of Samsung's total sales, where iPhone Pro could be just over 30% of Apple sales in the smartphone market. The from Simon Says Hypno, the Apple iFold will just be two iPhone Airs stapled together. Actually, that would be really clever if it were like the LG V60, right? If you had just two phones side by side that sort of sandwiched together, like the Surface Duo or the V60 dual display. I wouldn't hate that, because then it wouldn't be a foldy bendy plastic screen. It would be glass displays. It would just be two apps at the same time on an iPhone. Who could even imagine using two apps at the same time on an iPhone? That's impossible. From Dave Burns, people really need to read that exchange because the company think their customers are absolute morons. And the thing we keep pointing out in this chat, I mean, I know I'm preaching to the choir. Everybody's hurt by Apple's business practices. Everyone eventually gets burned when Apple gets greedy. But the people who are hurt the worst and hurt first are Apple's most loyal customers. And I'm getting really tired of trying to advocate for them when they won't make any efforts to advocate for themselves. So now it's just, can we stem the damage so that a Vivo or a Xiaomi or a OnePlus don't also go running into the same direction that Apple, at least in this case, that Apple's failing at? If Apple's not meeting their own internal expectations and they're reducing the number of phones they're going to order for the iPhone Air, I am just so hopeful that other companies are going to look at that and say, like, well, we were only going to sell a fraction of that and Apple isn't making their expectations. Let's just not do it. Samsung just canceled the Galaxy S26 Edge. If Samsung can't meet those expectations, let's just not do it, and it would make me so happy. So happy. Ah, what's up, Stevie? Stevie's saying, hello, Juan, watching live from UNM. Everyone a Lobo. Woof, woof, woof. Um, excuse me. I compared my niece, oh, from Simon Says Hypno again. I compared my niece's iPhone 16 Pro Max's camera to the Honor Magic V5. My niece is now jealous. I had a lot of those. I was at that ball game on Saturday and I did a slow motion video of one of the pitchers on the mound. You see, these are the videos like I can't share. Like I'm not going to share 4K slow motion video of some other person's kid. Like I need you all to know, like, I really am living this stuff and I'm showing it to other people, but I can't show you because it's like a gross violation of privacy and it's such a pain to, like, I took this video and then I have to put like a smiley face or blur out the kid's face in the video. But it's so easy to show someone this when you have like a Vivo X200 Pro or a Xiaomi 15 Ultra, and I'm showing them and they're like, "Oh, well, how did you do that?" And you're like, well, I mean, the phone, the camera, the sensors. I also have video editing software on my phone. Like, oh, so can my iPhone do that? No, sorry. If you had an iPhone 16 Pro Max, yeah, kinda, it wouldn't look as good, but it could do that. But like, sorry, an iPhone 14 can't do those things. And it's like they are still trapped in that Mac versus PC idea. Well, iPhones were the most expensivest, and I've tried other. Yeah, that story I always tell of my aunt. Like, well, I had to get a new MacBook. My old Dell was just a piece of garbage. Well, what was your old Dell? It's a 10-year-old laptop that I got for $300. And what's your new MacBook? It's a $1,500 machine, and it's brand new. Yeah, but Macs are better than PCs. But then you do something on your phone, and you can show them. That's all marketing. It, like we don't get these options here in the United States because people keep just buying Apple or Samsung. So Apple or Samsung don't feel any burning need to compete. They're not giving us their best. In fact, the sensors that make me so excited on this Xiaomi came from Samsung. I mean Sony and Samsung, but like that telephoto that I shot this 4K video with came from Samsung, and Samsung won't put it on their own phone. So I don't even have a phone that I can point you to. If you wanted this kind of capability, you wanted it to look this good, you would have to import your phone from another country. But I'm glad that I do, because it's way more fun to play with this stuff. Um, from Hikari, but Juan, did you hold a thin phone in your hands? Question mark. It was a life-altering experience for me. I I get it. I know there are people who they care about the wallpaper engine and the aesthetic of the phone, and that's what does it for them. I will never be able to talk meaningfully to that person. I'm not the aesthetic guy. I don't care about wallpapers. I don't really care about skins, and I hate that skins are often weaponized against companies like OnePlus. Like when the OnePlus 12 launched, there were reviewers with straight faces saying, "Oh, but in the notification shade, I don't like it that when I want to swipe away a notification, you can only swipe it in one direction, and then it doesn't swipe away in the other." And then OnePlus changed that in like an update like a month later so that you could swipe away your notifications in both directions. But it's not like those hacks ever went back and reevaluated the phone. They only used the phone pre-embargo, right? So they used it on pre-release software that no consumer ever would have experienced. And they're straight face saying to us, but I don't like it. I don't like it when you can only swipe it in one way. That's not my favorite way. I want to swipe it the other way. So I guess you need to buy a Samsung. And my affiliate links are down below. And you can get your Howl links and you can get your affiliate monies and you could buy a new Samsung and give me money. But I don't like it when the one isn't going the right way. It's not my favorite way. Simon says, "If no, how did the thin phone feel in the hand? Like it wasn't effing there at all. Except for the fact that it's still a heavy lump of technology that's going to take up a moderate amount of surface area in your pocket. And also probably be more susceptible to bend and flex damage over the life of that product because it's thinner. It's great." Dave Burns, one needs to clip that segment for TikTok. I'm so bad at like clipping and doing. So I get people that reach out to me like, "Oh, well, we can automate your podcast production." And you're like, "Oh, you really can't." I wish I were better at clipping my own clips though, because that would be fun. If anyone wants to clip my rant, I will happily credit the clip and share it across social media. And thank you for the effort. I have to move on to other videos as soon as I'm done with a podcast. Bradley Larcher saying, "Give us the SD card slot back. We deserve it." Farhan, if Sony can mainstream micro SD Express on their phones, that would be a great move. I mean, it would. I'm looking at SD cards as like media storage. And older generations of SD cards, just for cameras, are excellent at storing video footage. Like we would need to work on like phone bus speeds, um, but it would be completely adequate to store. Like Sony is the perfect example. A Sony Xperia can shoot 4K video up to 150 megabit per second bit rate. That matches the bit rate of my Lumix G9 when I'm storing internally on the SD cards. SD cards have no problem keeping up with that write speed. We don't even need to go to Express unless we're really saying to consumers, like, we want the phone to incorporate this as storage space so that you can store games that need to load into RAM and are processed more quickly. That would be a benefit. Your loading times would decrease. And I'm hoping that SD Express is built to a standard that anticipates more read write cycles and is more durable for longer periods of time. At some point, every storage medium will fail. The storage built into your phone, an SD card, a flash drive, an SSD, a spinning disk drive. At some point, every storage medium fails. But if you buy a quality card, I've had excellent experiences running quality cards for at least 2 to 3 phone generations. That shouldn't be a problem. Oh, I lost all my data on an SD card. Well, I'm pretty sure you're lying. Or you've just perpetually bought knockoff, clone, gray market, cheap ass cards that couldn't get the job done. Oh, George Whittam, I love it. Me too. I stopped paying a year ago for YouTube for marketing research. But George, tell me it's not wild. Like when you really start looking at what YouTube serves, it does not serve, to me anyway. And if your experiences are any different, like please drop me a comment in this chat or write me offline if your experience has been different. I do not understand the value of YouTube marketing at all anymore. To me, ads on YouTube have aggressively fulfilled the role of upsetting the viewer. That is the primary intent that YouTube serves. And to me, it seems like they are taking the money from their advertising partners to weaponize the audience against ads so that people will pay for subscriptions to be served fewer ads. Not even be completely devoid of ads. Like the new minimum tier at YouTube is just fewer ads than what you would normally get served. So to me, it doesn't seem like beneficial. Like when my wife is still scrolling through Instagram, she will show me things on her Instagram feed that she's genuinely interested in. Instagram is serving her ads and marketplace and buyers links on products that she thinks she might want to check out. That has not happened at all for me on YouTube. With Google having this enormous quantity of behavioral data on my experiences and my buying habits and my search habits, they can't pair me with meaningful marketing, stuff that I would actually be interested in. So I don't know. If George and if your experiences are different, please let me know. But to me, it's just been absolutely insane seeing that trend play out at YouTube over these last couple of years. From Hikari, the iPhone 15 was the best selling phone last year, if I recall correctly. From Hello Moto, Surface Duo, bring it back. Okay, well, I'll just pull it off the shelf. Uh, it's just such a magical device. I'm Panas Panay, and I'm emotional about the device and the emotions of the device. And when you're emotional about a device, it's emotional back, and you can do things with it that are emotional. Now I'm at Amazon. I love the hardware on this thing. When I showed my cousin, diehard iPhone user cousin, like this 2 panel multitasking screen arrangement, and he like spent all this time literally just like opening and closing it and wrapping it around and opening it again and wrapping it around and looking at the hinges. Like, again, you get out of Apple, Samsung, Google, and you hand someone something, and it's like, I just flew 10 years into the future. I plug in some glasses and I can watch movies on a giant private movie screen. And I just went 10 years into the future. They Our consumers are so woefully undereducated and so woefully underexperienced. It takes the most minor of experiences just to be like, no, 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 current tech is years ahead of what Apple is selling you right now. It's not even close. From Ola D, I remember vaguely that the iPhone 14 Plus almost had the best battery life in the 14 series. Plus, it's kind of strange that you barely see any of the pluses in the secondhand market. My headcanon is that the plus users really like their phones. And I think that would be good data to back it up. Like the phones that you're really going to live with the longest have good batteries in them. You need fewer battery replacements. They stay in rotation longer. They stay out in the wild, out of landfills longer. And I think your headcanon there, I think your assessment, that is a very good hypothesis. I think that is a hypothesis that the data would support. And if we could get better metrics on actual phone use and phone sales to consumers, we could probably verify that hypothesis. Um, from Hello Moto, I just want a 500 pound I just want a 500 pound phone. I do not want a 1,000 pound phone. Apple doesn't offer that. I I mean they have like again, I feel like everything for them is about punishing the user if they want to spend less. I feel like the last time I felt, hey, this is a less expensive phone that really offers something proper for this niche of consumers was the original iPhone SE that was built on the iPhone 5S frame, but then was just slightly upgraded internals and a slightly better camera. And that iPhone SE, I think, is still one of the all time best Mighty Mouse phones that's ever been made. It's like the original iPhone SE and the Sony Xperia Compact are two of the best. I'm running through an airport, I've got bags and suitcases, and I can only use one thumb, and I can do everything on one thumb kinds of devices. Especially for dudes like me with really small, stumpy thumbs. Like those two phones, hands down, the best communicators I've ever used. Mhm. Oh yeah, Ola D. It's really frustrating trying to talk to people who insist that all Android phones are slow, that all iPhones were essentially flagships, and Android phones can vary in experience with your budget. Excuse me. So I'm talking to a friend of ours at my daughter's school, and his older daughter lost her iPhone, and it's really sad. Um, they're a family, they're doing okay, but still, that is a big purchase for a family to get their high school age daughter an iPhone. And so she lost this iPhone and they can't find it at all. And the battery had completely died. So they can't even like do find my device stuff. They never turned on any of that family tracking stuff. Like they just got iPhones because people said get iPhones and iPhones were good. And they didn't really set any of that stuff up. So now that the phone's dead, they can't recover it using the Find My network of Apple devices. And so I mentioned, is like, hey, you're paying for a phone line, and I've got some phones. Like, you, I could just give you, like, literally, I have an inbox TCL. Like, she's not going to love it, but if she needs to call you or communicate with her friends or check email or messages or social anything that you're letting her do on her iPhone, she could do on this until you can afford to replace her iPhone. And like, instead of just doing it, he asked her and she was like, "No, I need a new iPhone." And you're like, I think if my daughter loses her really expensive iPhone, unless she's buying it paying to replace it herself, she doesn't get a vote. She will get to use whatever I have handy that I don't have any designs on using. And if that's an old Moto or a TCL or an old OnePlus or something like that, that's what she's going to be stuck with until she can afford to replace the phone with something that she wants. If she wants to spend $1,000 of her own hard earned money on a phone, then she can. But he's actively talking about, like, well, we're on this one carrier. And I think if we switch carriers, we would have to pay off my wife's phone, but then we could get new sign up deals on another carrier. And then we could afford to get her an iPhone. And you're like, what are you doing? Tell her no. Make her realize, like, this is how much stuff costs. And the phone that I was going to give her was a TCL X40 or 40X. I forget. Oh, it's right down here. TCL 40X 5G. Big screen, 90 hertz refresh rate, headphone jack, memory card slot. It's a pokey little processor. It's like one of the what is it? It's not a Helio, but it's like one of the 3-digit MediaTeks. It's like a MediaTek Dimensity 700. Not a screamer. Not a crazy powerful device. Um, but incredible battery life. You could plug in headphones, listen to music, put in a memory card, make it a little media player. It's a really capable budget phone. I think it retails for like 200 bucks if you were dumb enough to buy one of these full price. It's really easy to get one of these for free on other carrier sign up deals, or like to find them online for like $50 and a half a ham sandwich. And here it is, new in box. It's not been used. I tested the battery that it still holds a charge, but I still have the sticker on the screen. So I got two of these at a TCL press event, and I used one just to kind of talk about it, and then the other one just sort of stayed in its bag. And you can see this is pristine. This has not been touched by human hands. And no, no, she needs an iPhone. She just needs it. She needs it. It's not her favorite way. She can't Android. She needs the iPhone. So I have been making fun of my friend a little bit there. Tell her no. I don't know, but she got really good grades this last quarter and we just want to reward the effort. You're paying her $1,000 for 2 A's? She got 2 A's on her report card. So I guess we need to get her an iPhone 17. Okay. All right. That's great. It's great. So, as I was trying to catch up on comments, you all wrote comments that were going ahead. Hello Moto saying, to be fair, I bought so many micro SD cards that fail. It's the heat when you constantly use them. What I'd prefer is internal storage upgrades at a reasonable price. Unfortunately, what we've seen, because this might be the problem, someone clued me in on some issues that are happening with like the Pixel 8, where the Pixel 8 chips can run hot enough to degrade the solder near the wireless components. Getting to a point where we can have true expandable storage in a phone is going to take a long time with the way that we build phones and that the way we're trying to crush more components into a smaller space. So I can appreciate, yeah, you've had some bad experience with experiences with SD cards. It's not cool in Southern California. We regularly have summers that track 110 degrees Fahrenheit. We've had a few peak like 115, regularly out like driving through the Southwest and Arizona and New Mexico. Like, I get it, but with reasonable use and you focus on using the card for media and storage, then I've never had a card fail in a phone that wasn't like getting to an end of life anyway. And for me, I'm saying it is reasonable to expect a quality card, like a good high professional grade card, which is now under $100 for a terabyte of storage, to last 2 to 3 years of really hard use. It should last about 3 phone generations. I think that's reasonable. I think that's still a better buy than what you would be paying for a terabyte of cloud storage month to month. And my personal experience is, what is the card that I'm using with my camera? I think it's a 400 gig card. So this one's still going strong after 5 years of being used in phones, and then I'm in phones. This is, what is the 400 512? No, it is a 512 SanDisk Extreme U3A2. This is going on its fourth year of use in my Lumix cameras and in my action cameras, and it's just moving back and forth. And all I do with this is put hot mileage on recording 4K video on it. 150 megabit per second 4K video. That is the only thing it does every time I use it. That's pretty good. Michael C., I put an SD card in my V60 and my Wing and my Note 9, and they all still work to this day. The 16 gig card I put in my Galaxy Note 4 still works. I just don't use it for anything because that card is legit stupid slow. But I bought a really expensive 16 gig card when that phone was brand new, and long it long outlived all of the other phones of its generation, and it outlasted the actual Note 4 that I have that just recently failed. So it's pretty great. Some other people talking about YouTube ads getting really bad. Some folks talking about the iPhone SE. Michael C. Thin phones are stupid. I rewinded to that section of the video and he's not disappointing. Laugh out loud. Again, if anyone wants to clip it for me, I'm just really bad at clipping my own podcasts. I would appreciate it. JGJ, with that intonation, she needs an old Nokia. So apparently, oh, this is hilarious. Apparently, his youngest daughter, they just gave her an old Nokia phone to use as a basic communicator that she can text and call her parents. It's like her first step. And I was so proud of them. It's a first step device. She needs to learn how to take care of a device. And they got her an old Nokia. And it was like, that's brilliant. It's retro. It's cool. Like, just keep her on that for a year or two. Wait until she gets into middle school, and then you can talk about maybe something a little bit nicer. But don't get her something really nice. She's gonna destroy these gadgets, and they're getting pushback from her. I hate this Nokia. I need a real smartphone. And what she means is she needs a real iPhone like her older sister. And they're like, you need to absolutely stop that. You want an iPhone, you can buy an iPhone. You know how much you make an allowance, and you can start picking up some odd jobs around the house, and you can look at whatever lemonade stand scheme you want to try and raise funds. But I'm not going to jump to $1,000 devices just because you think you want them. You do some savvy shopping. Find me an iPhone at the same price as this TCL 40X 5G. This podcast not sponsored by TCL. Because that is a wonderfully capable communications device that is actually more fun in a lot of ways that could be handy. Like if you want to plug in headphones or take like a whole bunch of movies and media with you on a memory card, because memory cards are awesome. But no, I need an iPhone. It's not my favorite way. All right, I gotta wrap this up. Again, I went longer than I intended to. We did get a follow up from George. Now watching your YouTube video about moving from Spotify to Qobuz, it's about time. They've had my money for 15 years. Just take it for a test drive. I love Qobuz. And I like that while I still have a subscription to Qobuz, when I want to buy music in the absolute best quality that that artist ever released, if it's CD quality or placebo 24-bit 192 kilohertz FLAC files, Qobuz gives me a market that I can buy up to DSD. Like they cap it at insanely placebo high quality FLAC. So I can't jump to DSD. I'm never going to jump to DSD. I'm not a DSD kind of guy. But that's what I've been padding out. I listen to an old album. I loved this album. Let me just own a copy of it. And more often than not, I can find it through like HD tracks or through Qobuz. Love Qobuz. I mean, don't put all your eggs over. Like don't just like jump whole hog. If you had playlists, things like that, sometimes playlist management can be a pain in the butt. But give it a spin because Qobuz like rocks our socks. And if I'm not doing Qobuz now, increasingly I'm just making my own music streaming platform, like I did with Plex to make my own movie streaming platform. It is very satisfying to make your own. So let me take a drink of water. I just like inhaled something and it's dusty and my throat is trying to actively revolt. All right. So, folks, that was a silly one where I went off on a bunch of different stupid tangents, but I love kind of letting the tech conversation wander and finding those intersections where tech and life and politics and science and entertainment can all intersect because it's never mattered. It's always mattered, but it's never mattered more that we pay attention to the things we use, how we use them, and how they use us. And it really is satisfying jumping in, starting my week off every week and leaning into these kinds of conversations and knowing that there are some folks out there that are while I'm sure many of you don't always agree with me, um but that we can still kind of hash out some of this back and forth and do it live, do it in real time. So one last, Hikari is saying, yeah, why doesn't this guy get a used iPhone for his daughter? And think about the kind of kid who is mandating a replacement iPhone, and she doesn't want an old phone. So I mentioned, like, I've got this TCL. It's a slightly older model, but it is, I showed you, it is untouched, unused. It has not been booted up, but I did check the battery. Well, she doesn't want an old phone. And like, dude, this girl is raking you right now. I can't say that to some dad, right? Like, can't just go up to a dad and be like, dude, your daughter is playing you sick, bro. It can't be an old phone. She doesn't want an old phone. It's like got old germs on it from the person who used it before. It's old. So anyway, everybody have an amazing week. I want you to do awesome with your technology. I want you to be awesome with your technology. Be on the lookout. Lots of stuff going to be coming to the YouTube channel, somegadgetguy.com. If you're on Patreon, that is the best place to get notified when I put new stuff out. You don't even need to be a patron paying with money if you just want the notification. You just want to know that stuff is coming to the channel. That is going to be a better notification than anything YouTube can do with smashing bell icons or any of that nonsense. Or you can also throw somegadgetguy.com into an RSS feed reader. I try not to pollute my blog with a bunch of nonsense. It's going to be just the main posts that I'm putting out public, and you'll know first when something new is coming and you can read it or you can watch it. Greatly appreciate all of the support and people who are sharing these videos and podcasts and editorials across social media. If you have the means, if you can chip in a buck here and there, that helps keep the lights on here on the Gadget Lab. And I also just really appreciate the community where I get to kind of work through some of these ideas. I have a whole list of scripts and videos and articles that I'm writing and shooting because I've had these interactions with people over on patreon.com/somegadgetguy. So I'll catch you back here next week for another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. Be safe. It's wild out there. Keep your head down. Stay safe. Keep track of your mental health so that you can keep being the amazing tech neighbors I know you can be. And I'll see you back. I love you all. Take care.